Some experiments were born to succeed, but went terribly wrong. Today, I'm going to tell you 10 cases where a test, a prototype, or a stroke of genius spun out of control and turned into a lesson for life. 1. Chernobyl, the safety test that became a disaster. In the cold early hours of April 26, 1986, the crew shut down automatic systems to simulate a power loss and measure how the turbine would keep cooling. Looked like a routine drill. But rushed decisions, design flaws, and broken procedures created a chain of instabilities. Power surged, 2 blasts destroyed the reactor and the roof, graphite caught fire, and radioactive material rose into the atmosphere. The test, meant to increase safety, proved the opposite. Hard lesson. In high-risk systems, experiments need clear limits, active redundancies, and the humility to say, "Not today." 2. Challenger, a launch that ignored the cold. On January 28, 1986, the rush to keep the schedule beat out technical warnings about freezing weather. Solid rocket booster O-ring seals stiffen in the cold and don't seal as well. It seemed like just another flight. 73 seconds later, the failed seal became a jet of flame, hit the main tank, and the vehicle broke apart. The collective experiment in real-time risk management failed, not for lack of data, but for not giving the data its due weight. Pause to think, numbers we don't like are still numbers. 3. Mars Climate Orbiter, the probe that missed the math. One team used pound force, the other expected newtons. The software converted wrong, the spacecraft's trajectory shifted, and it dipped too low into the Martian atmosphere. No cinematic explosion, just radio silence, and millions of dollars gone, over a unit's detail. Spaceflight is millimeters and milliseconds. If the language of the numbers diverges, physics doesn't forgive. A simple hard antidote, shared standards, cross-checks, and tests that try to break the system before space does. 4. Tacoma Narrows. When the wind played the bridge looked elegant, light, economical, and it swayed in moderate wind. The wind's frequency met the structures. Oscillation grew and grew, until huge torsions brought the deck down in 1940. Not a perfect storm, resonance ignored. That urban experiment became an engineering film class. What just shakes a little today can shake too much tomorrow. After it, wind tunnel testing, dampers, and aerodynamics became headliners in bridge design. 5. Comet, windows that wore out the metal. The world's first commercial jet looked like the future in 1952, but square windows concentrated stress in the corners, and repeated pressurization fatigued the fuselage. Microscopic cracks grew in silence until they became in-flight ruptures. The experiment of flying higher and faster charged the price of a shape detail. The response came with pressure tank tests and exemplary investigation, and aviation learned to love rounded corners, rigorous inspections, and metal that speaks before it fails. 6. Biosphere 2, the mini-Earth that ran out of air. The plan was noble. 8 people living for years in a sealed ecosystem, recycling air, water, and soil. On paper, perfect. In practice, plants, microbes, and soil chemistry consumed too much oxygen. Rodents and insects thrived, pollinators vanished, and the team had to receive air from outside. The experiment taught the obvious we forget. Ecosystems are complex, non-linear, and small variations avalanche. Next time, more sensors, longer simulations, and less faith in "it'll be fine." 7. Cold fusion, the announcement before the science. In 1989, 2 researchers said they'd achieved tabletop nuclear fusion at room temperature. Clean, cheap energy seemed to have arrived. Labs around the world tried to replicate, and couldn't. The shortcut to glory became a lesson in method. Extraordinary results. Demand extraordinary evidence. Open protocols. Reproducibility. The part that hurt wasn't, it didn't work. It was skipping validation steps. Science isn't a race to post first. It's a marathon to prove. 8. Cane toads in Australia. The control that spun out of control. The idea was to reduce pests in sugarcane fields. They brought in exotic toads, expecting them to eat the target insects. The toads loved their new home but ignored the pest, and devoured everything else, small vertebrates, native insects, and they poisoned predators with their toxins. The ecological experiment without deep study became a bigger plague. Moral: meddling with a food chain without testing impacts is like poking a house of cards with boxing gloves. 9. Tay, the bot that learned from the worst classroom. An AI was put on Twitter to learn from real conversations and became a target for bad faith users. In hours, the system was repeating slurs and misinformation, showing that learning from the world without filters is also learning the worst of the world. A social and technical experiment that failed, but pushed the field toward moderation, data curation, and safety testing before launch and see. In tech, open beta can't be code for a lab in a public square. 10. New Coke, the taste test that forgot the feelings. In 1985, blind tests showed a preference for the new flavor. Metrics applauded, but a sip test doesn't measure memory, ritual, or brand identity, and the public's reaction was furious. The marketing experiment turned into a strategic retreat, with the classic product back on shelves to applause. Priceless takeaway: data is great, but narrow slices yield myopic decisions. In choices that touch culture, the how matters as much as the how much. Which one gave you the biggest chills? And which would you turn into a demo video? If you like this, drop a like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who thinks, it's just a test. What could go wrong?